Hello, Internet! So nice to see you, and welcome to another Theory Talk Live. Today we're going to have a special guest to talk to us about slides. Slides seems to be a very simple technique. That's one of the first things you learn. No, I mean how to do just this stuff, but the slides have a lot of variability in it, a lot of possible changes you can do in it, a lot of possible things you can do in it, and they are interesting, and they can make your playing sound completely different with just a little change. So it's good to go and dive deep into them because it's stuff that is applicable immediately by everybody and it makes you sound much better. Now, before I go ahead, if you are watching us, say hi in the chat or in the comments, say from where you are, from where you're from, whatever, okay? Because I want to see where you guys are from. We already have people from Indonesia, from North Carolina. We already spanned the whole world, okay? So say hi in the chat, okay? And remember that in any moment, you can put your questions in the chats, in the comments. We see them, we read them. We often answer them, very often. We answer them. We like to get questions from the audience. So without further ado, okay, let me introduce today's guest, guitar maestro Tom Hess. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
Hess. How's it going? How are you feeling today?
Very well. Ready to go.
Good. So last time I had you here, we were talking about vibrato. The idea was to talk about phrasing, and then we spent the whole hour talking about vibrato because you and I are these kind of guys. So this time we start with a more modest goal, which is talking about slides, and I'm sure an hour will not be enough. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna ask you is this: how is it? I mean, I know the answer, but how is it that we can take something so simple and we can dive down so deep? Why there are so many variations? Why the simple stuff have so many variations?
Well, partly because sometimes simple things become not so simple when we start adding other things to them, stacking various elements on top of each other, or just diving really deep into the nuance of things that people tend not to really pay a lot of attention to or kind of take for granted, really can become a really big deal. So talking about slides, if everybody knows you can slide up or you can slide down. So if you only think about slides from a technical perspective, it's like, okay, I got it. Slide up, slide down. There's nothing left to talk about. We're done. Let's move on. Show me something else. Well, that would be really limiting if we just limited our point of view from either slide up or slide down. You see, there's an emotional difference between slides that ascend and slides that descend. And I'll demonstrate that in just a moment. But just like if you have a melody that ascends, or a scale or an arpeggio that ascends, it has a different feeling, generally speaking, to the same things which descend. When things ascend, they tend to build tension. They have a feeling of forward momentum, of pushing forward. When things descend, it's more like the resolution of tension. Not always, but very broadly speaking, it is kind of like that. So let me play for you a chord. So this is a B chord, B minor, or it's actually a B add 9, or B sus2, actually. Okay, so I'm establishing B minor in your ears. All right, now if we take a note, let's say we take... I slid from F sharp up to D. Okay, so I went from the 5 to the 5th of the chord to the 3rd of the chord. And even though the 5 is a stronger note relative to the chord, and 3, the 3rd of the chord, is a weaker in stability than the 5, we still have this sense of tension rising. We're going somewhere. Now compare that to if we slide down, let's say. It's a different feel. Now you might say, well, of course it feels different. You chose different notes. First, you went from F sharp to D, the 5 to the 3rd of the chord, and then you went from the root to the 9th. So naturally, the feeling's going to be different because you chose different notes. That's not really a fair example, you might say. Well, what if we take the same notes? So there's the 2nd or the 9th up to the root. When we go the other way, though, totally different feeling. So it's more than just what the notes are. It's when you slide up, you're generally creating a tension or a sense of moving forward. And when you go the other way, it's kind of like letting the air out of the balloon a little bit. It's way more subdued. So that general principle about the direction, up or down, of slides really matters because if you want to create more of a tension of going somewhere or increased tension, you might choose, all other things being equal, to go up with your slide. If you wanted to create the opposite feel, you might choose to go down. Whether it's at the beginning of a phrase or the end of a lick or whatever is less important. Just knowing that as you go up, you're creating more tension. So here's another example. So there I'm playing 5, up to 3, way up to 1. So now we have a double slide here. We got 3 notes, right? 5 slide to 3, 3 slide all the way up to 1. And we really have this big sense of going somewhere. Tension is rising, okay? If we do... three notes there, right? We got F sharp, I think I played. Slide down to the root. Now down to the 9th. It's totally different feeling all the way. It's completely different feeling. So the direction makes a big difference in the emotion you're going to create. That makes sense, Tommaso?
Absolutely. And I think the big paradigm shift here is that if we think only about the technique, so if you think only about what your hands, your fingers do on the fretboard, you are limited in choice because you only see, I can go up, I can go down, I can put an extra note, I can do you just see the mathematical thing, like, okay, I have 1 and 2, nothing else. But if you start thinking about music instead, if you start thinking about the emotional effect of that, how it works in context, okay, then the possibilities become limitless because you start making choices in a different way. You see different variables, different things that you can control. And that's what is missing from many musicians. I mean, that's kind of the difference between a guitar player and an actual musician, okay? That the musician immediately starts thinking, okay, what's the effect on a listener? As opposed to how do I move my hands to get a sound? So that's the big paradigm shift. That's why people think slides are simple. You say they can go only up or down, which is not. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that lots of people underestimate all this thing about going up and going down. And it's a very real emotional effect. And okay, and going up lifts your spirits up, and going down take your feelings down. Okay, I mean, sounds stupid, I know, but it's actually real. Lots of happy melodies start going up, a lot of sad melodies starts going down, and so on and so forth. So it's a very real effect, and people kind of underestimate that because it sounds too simple, too basic. But music is made of basic things, okay, skillfully applied and carefully combined, definitely, but it's made of simple things. So it's important to think about that. It needs the right emphasis, okay? So good. Now, beyond going up and going down, I know you have other stuff. So
sure. Yeah, well, also, but actually, yes, I have other things I would like to share. Before we get into that, one thing that Dr. Zilio just mentioned was that slides are an expressive or an emotional outlet. It's not simply a technical one, or it's not simply a technical choice. It's not like, oh, I have to go from here to here. Well, I guess I'll just slide. Okay. Here, if you do a slide like that, you're thinking, I got to move from that position to that position. I'll put a slide in order to cover up what would be maybe a gap or a rest or a hesitation or anything like that. Now we're sliding for a technical reason, not really a musical one. And not that that's bad or wrong, but the more choices that you make that are expressive or musically, the better and more fun I think guitar playing is going to be. If you start making choices based upon, well, I have to do X because I'm in this situation, I got to get from here to here, and a slide is kind of a good way to get there, that's okay. But I think there's some lost opportunity if we start thinking about that. Okay, so
it's good to know the possibility exists.
Yes,
so that you can put it in the basket of possibilities that you can choose. It's not always appropriate. It's not that just because you can, you should slide. But it's good to have an eye on when you can slide, and when you can't, it's good to have an eye on how you can move the notes around so you can.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So in addition to direction, we also have the size. So size matters. So I'm told. So point is this: if you have a small slide, let's say a half step, the slide is a little less dramatic, still useful, but less dramatic when the slide is small. Compared to large slides, here I'm sliding basically 2 octaves, not very cleanly, but okay, so that's a big slide there. My B string just went out of tune.
By the way, this would be a good moment to let people know that your guitar has 27 frets, because because they don't see you arriving at the end, but they hear 2 octaves. So I'm sure somebody's going to be confused.
Yes. This guitar, thank you. This guitar has 27 frets. So the high B note is here. Okay, this would be a D up here. That's a G up there. Very, very high. Anyway, the point is going from 0, okay. There's the middle, 12th fret. And there is up on the 24th fret. So I call these super slides. Any slide that's an octave or more. So these big slides, to some people, maybe it sounds a little ridiculous to do a slide that large, but it's pretty dramatic. It may not be appropriate for all situations, but sometimes it's really cool if you're just taking, if you do large slides freely. So just imagine improvising with only slides. Okay, so I'm just. It's a lot of fun. It's challenging to do that because it's not hard for this hand. It's not hard for the technically hard. What makes the big slides challenging is your eyeballs. You have to be looking where you want the hand to end up before you start moving there. So if you wanted to slide, let's say from this beat up an octave, and then go up an octave on top. When I'm here, my eyes, once I'm in position, no longer need to be looking there, and they have to be staring right there. They've got to find the B an octave higher, be looking there, and then the hand starts to move. If my eyes aren't ahead of my hand, I'm going to screw it up. Okay, the slide will be wrong. It'll be too short or too far. It'll be off because I don't know where I'm going. So Same thing there. When I go up here, so once I'm here, the octave is pretty easy to find because it's right in the neighborhood. But if I know I'm going to go from here down another octave on the string, once I'm in this position, I'm already looking over there because I know I'm going to go there next. So that's the important thing. If big slides feel hard because it's hard to accurately do them sometimes, if it's inaccurate, it likely just means that your eyes are not ahead of your hand. They're watching your hand going up and down, and that's what's likely causing you to maybe miss the slide and not really get it accurately. I mean, occasionally you might make a mistake, a technical mistake with your hand, even if you are looking at the right spot. I mean, I don't do it perfect 100% of the time, but it's a pretty reasonable chance I'm going to nail it if my eyes are ahead.
Yes, and I see a lot of people that are afraid to do those long slides because they know they're going to get them wrong. Okay, and so you just gave them the keys to get them right. Okay, you guys should look at the arrival point before you start sliding.
Yeah, like when performing live, that's a great point, Tommaso. When performing live, it's risky, right? I mean, especially if you're improvising and you're on stage, you're playing, or you're at an audition or whatever, there's risk involved. Okay, I'm going to do this big slide, and maybe I'm going to make it, maybe I'm not going to make it. Well, there's two things you can do about. There's two ways you can respond to that. I suppose three. The first is practice, naturally. The second is make sure that your eyes have enough time to get and stare at wherever you want to go before you move your hand. Okay. If you do that, you'll do this with a little bit of practice. You'll probably get it right 80 to 95% of the time just by doing that. Now, what do we do about the other 5, 10, 15% of the time? What do we do now? Do we just take a chance that it's going to be wrong? Well, you've got to have ways to correct it. So if your target note was this E and you come up short, you don't want to do this. Let's say we're trying to get this note. If you do the slide and you come up short, instead of going, you don't want to do that, right? You just bend up into it. Bend up into a little vibrato on the end. Okay, so if you're going to make a mistake, it's always a little easier to correct the mistake or cover it up if you come a little bit too short, because you can always just bend up into it. Just kind of, smoothly just kind of bend it and fix it. Now, if you do the slide and you overshoot, if the target note was E and you slid up to F, which maybe is not even in the key, like if you were an E minor, the F note would not be in the key. Now we have a double problem. The first problem is we missed our target note, and then the note that we ended up on is not even in the key. Okay, so now we got, you can't really bend that up to get to E. So what we'll have to do, I would still bend it up either to F sharp or go all the way up to G, wherever you need to get to, and then come back down and then resolve on the E. So here's an example of that. So I'm on F right now. My finger's on F. I just bend up to G because that's in the key. So let me just draw you a picture of what just happened. Here is our target note. Okay, we're going up. We want to go up to E. Okay, that's where we're trying to get to, but we missed it. Okay, we slid. Now we're on F. That's kind of a nasty note in this particular key. Okay, or at least can be. When I get to F and I realize, oh man, I goofed it up. Okay, I've immediately transformed the slide into a bend. You can either bend up to F sharp, because that's in the key, or you can go all the way up to G, which is what I just did. Okay, but you're bending it up to some note that's in the key. Okay, some note that's in the key. Okay, now this note, F sharp or G, may or may not be in the chord that's being played in the background right now. So it's in the key, but it's not necessarily a consonant note in the chord. That's not necessarily a problem, but just recognize that this isn't always the ideal note either. So I would bend up, I would sustain it, and then do a slow release down, not down to F, Okay, don't release the bend down to F. You just start releasing it part of the way down, maybe a quarter step down, half step down, whatever. And then from there, drop the string down to E. If this E, they should be on the same level, should be up here. Okay, make it look a little bit more accurate. Okay, so we can't really release down to E directly because our finger is on F. So we can't really do this. What we have to do is you release it part of the way and then drop the string down to E, and then you add a little vibrato, and it's totally smooth. And you know you goofed it up, okay? But no one else knows you goofed it up. Sounds perfectly fine doing this, and it sounds like, oh, he meant to do that. That was pretty cool. And, you know, it's a way to get yourself out of those sorts of mistakes that might happen 5, 10, 15% of the time, even with, if you're doing a huge slide. The bigger the slide, the bigger the risk. Okay, but now you've got a plan to get yourself out of it. You do either if you fall short, if you end up on D or D sharp or C sharp or something below E, you just bend it right up to E. If you go too far, that's okay. If you went up to F sharp, that wouldn't be really a problem because that note's in the key. You could play F sharp and then just play E after. That would be an appoggiatura. That's fine. But if this is out of the key, if you're on F or you're on G sharp or it's a nasty dissonant note, okay, you just bend up to the next note that is consonant, release it back down, and drop the string to E, and then you're there. So that's how you deal with that. It's very useful for when you're playing live.
Yeah, I think people don't practice mistake recovery. They should. Okay, it's an area of guitar practice that is being neglected, I think. And but it's very useful, and also, as I like to say, for instance, jazz is made of that. It's mistake recovery all the way because they improvise all the time, and they get all the wrong notes, and they learn to make the wrong notes sound one way or another. So even for some style, it's actually necessary to know a little bit of mistake recovery. I mean, it's necessary for everybody, but I mean, it's even stylistically, it's necessary for some style. I want to take a question from the audience because it seems an obvious question, but it's not. It's like, I never am very comfortable with slides. Do you suggest looking at the fretboard or not looking at the fretboard while playing? I think the while playing is the interesting part for me. I'm not sure if Willy here is asking this knowing exactly what he's asking, because when I hear that, I'm thinking while playing as opposed to practicing, because I would do two different things in practice and playing. Mm-hmm. But maybe we can answer both. So what will you do while you practice and what will you do while you play?
Okay, great question. So out of habit, I pretty much look at my guitar pretty much all the time. I know that I don't have to look all the time, but I just generally do. But I can have a conversation with my wife who's off camera here, or look outside or talk to the dog or whatever. That I can do that. If I'm doing a huge slide, I can't do that. Now I've got to pay attention. Okay. If it's a big position shift, I've got to pay attention. But if I'm generally in position and I need to go, down to the next position or the scale pattern or whatever, I don't really need to look at that because that's pretty close by, and probably you don't really need to either. So as far as it relates to slides, if you're doing something like this, see, I don't need to, that's close enough that I don't need to look. I know what the feeling of 1 fret away is, or 3 frets away, or 2 frets away. I could do that all day and never make a mistake, as far as the sliding goes, at least. But if it's bigger, well, now the risk goes up. The bigger the slide, the bigger the risk. So now, yeah, I'm going to have to be looking, not only for safety, to make sure that I'm getting it right, but if I get it wrong, not only can I hear that it's wrong, but I can also see that it's wrong. So, and since I can see faster than I can hear and process the oral information, it's faster for me to make the correction if I need to correct it. So if I did that same thing, or whatever I played, see there, I'm a half step lower than the root. Okay, I did that on purpose to make a point. So if I can hear, of course, that it's not the root. The root is here, but I can also see it. Okay, and I can fix it. And now it just sounds like, oh, he meant to do that. And he just, it sounds natural, even if it was a mistake that I covered up and do. So I'm going to address the first part. I'm never comfortable with slides. Well, again, the more that you watch where you're sliding to, the more comfortable you're going to be. And the more practice you get at correcting errors when they occur in real time, the better. So what a lot of students that I teach, what a lot of them do is their idea of correcting a mistake is stopping and then doing it again. So let's say we were going to slide from F sharp down to B. And let's say they did it. Let's say they make a mistake and do this. Okay, so there's an error. Instead of trying to fix that mistake, what the student would do is like, oh man, I made a mistake. Let me hold on. Let me try that again. There, now I got it. And they think that they fixed something. They didn't fix anything. Okay, the mistake still exists. I mean, it occurred. Okay, when they do it again and they do it correctly, okay, the second attempt was correct, and that's good. We were trying to get the accuracy, but they might get better at making the slide accurate. They might get better at that, but they're not getting any better at what happens if that really happens in real life. What are you going to do about it? I mean, you're not going to tell the audience, "Hey guys, hold on, do over. Let me try this. Everybody stop playing. Let's try it again." That's never going to happen, right? So you got to do something, and you don't want to say, "Oh crap, man, I goofed up," and have a weird look on your face and broadcast to everybody that you just made a mistake. I mean, that's what amateurs do. So you wouldn't want to do that. You want to practice those mistakes. So let's practice it. If you're at home right now and you got your guitar, let's do this. Put your finger on the third string, 11th fret. Third string, 11th fret. This is F sharp. And let's slide down to fret 3. Okay, so this is our wrong note. Let's practice. What are you going to do if that happens in real life? Okay, what happens if you make a mistake and you slide all the way down to A? Well, now we're even farther. Now, what are you going to do? You're on fret 2. It's not easy to bend strings on the second fret, and you're only using one finger. You don't have the other fingers to help you. You got one finger that's got to bend up a whole step from fret 2. Not exactly an easy task, but you can do it. Or you only have to bend that note a little bit. You don't even have to bend it in tune. Bend it up, bend it up. So we're still far away from B. Okay, we're bending up. And then with our third finger, we're just going to go directly to B and smash on it. So now you're practicing what happens when you're 1 fret too low. What happens when you're 2 frets too low? What happens when you're 1 fret too high? I mean, that sounds really bad, right? Definitely a wrong note. What are we going to do about it? Maybe we'd bend it up to D. It's not as smooth as this. It's more natural, but or maybe up to C sharp is better. And then you end up in the B. The point is, if you don't specifically practice, what are you going to do when you really goof it up? Then anytime you make a mistake, when it really counts, it's going to sound like a big mistake. And you're going to feel maybe uncomfortable, maybe a little embarrassed, maybe like, oh man, that was bad. Okay. We want to be able to smooth that over. And as Dr. Zelio was just mentioning, this is what professional players do all the time. Okay. Amateurs practice to get it right once. Pros practice to never get it wrong. And if they do get it wrong, how am I going to get out of this? Okay. There's a plan. There's some practicing involved. Okay. The greatest guitar players in the world, okay, whoever that is in your opinion, they make mistakes all the time. You just don't really recognize them as mistakes because they know how to get out of them. They practice this stuff. They do it every night. So, I mean, I've seen Yngwie make mistakes a lot of times, and I don't, that's not taking anything away from him, but it is so smooth what he's going to do to get out of that, you wouldn't even know. In fact, it's hard for me to even tell sometimes. Did he goof that up and fix it? Or did he really intend to do that? I mean, that's how good it is. So you see, someone like Steve Vai, or it doesn't really matter. They are really good at that stuff. And you can be too. It just takes a little practice. But it's a different kind of practicing than this. Okay, got it right. Let's do it again. Oh, I did it right. Let's do it again. Oh, I did it wrong. Let's do it again. That's not fixing mistakes. That's something else.
Yes, and we want to make 2 points here. The first one is that what you gave us were all examples. It's not the official way to fix that mistake.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
No, I know it's of course, but I mean, you can bet that on the internet somebody will say, Tom Hess said that the way to fix this mistake is this specific way and not. So, I mean, you could go down here and fix it with pulling on the bar. You can go down here and do another slide. You can. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can put more slides, the legatos, hammer on, pull off. You can. Okay, that's the first thing. Because otherwise, it's an example. Okay, yes. But the second point I want to make is that there is a good situation where you want to actually practice, not looking at the fretboard. You want to play the slide looking at the fretboard first. Later, you want to try to do the same with your eyes closed. Just to see if you can get a feeling of the guitar. Because, of course, you have your eyes. And again, optimally, you want to look where you end, like you were saying, and just aim there. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you are on stage. You have the lights in front of you, straight in your pupils. You don't see anything. You are crying because the lights are so intense. Okay, and it's all a big white out. And so you need to be able to do it just by feeling the guitar. So you can practice that. So when you practice, you can do all those big super slides and just close your eyes and try to get them. And I mean, of course, you're going to get them wrong the first few times. Okay. So when you practice, you need to accept that you will make mistakes. And then try until you get it right. Until you get it right most of the time. So you start to get a feeling of your instrument. And so it becomes easier and easier to get the slides right.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Couldn't agree more.
Good. So I know you have interesting ways to play those slides, like the backslide or other things.
Yes.
And also we have already questions like, is it good to do a slide with legato after it, etc. So I'm letting you show some of your signature moves if you want.
Okay. Well, I don't know if they're mine. They're just things that I do, but it's not that I created any of this stuff. So slides are legato. Okay. So just, I think the questioner already knows that. But yeah, we'll talk about stacking some other things a little later with
most guitar players think that legato is only hammer on and pull off. I mean, you and I know that it's formally legato. Okay? But lots of people are like, legato means hammer on, pull off, period.
Yeah, okay. Plus slides, plus bends, plus vibrato. That's all part of legato. It's all under that general umbrella. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So let's talk about the number of slides. So if you slide in one direction, okay, sliding up, then sliding down. Really, the slide is just, in this case, the slides really just replace this. Same notes without the slides, right? Now I put the slides in. Okay, why would we choose to do a slide instead of just picking the notes? Well, one reason is it's smoother to do the slide than it is to pick the notes. Second, you remove the pick attack, or at least you can remove the pick attack if you don't pick, the notes after the first one, or you don't even have to pick the first note. You can do all slides without picking anything. So the pick attack is removed, so the note is a little bit more pure. The next thing is that you have a little bit better control of the dynamic level, because now, as you know, when you play a note on the guitar, its dynamic level is decreasing as the note sustains. It's getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. Okay. So if you don't add any action on the string, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, as you slide, the notes are going to get also weaker. See, if I don't do anything intentional, the dynamic level of the slides as they go down just dies as the note naturally decays, as the string decays. Okay, so if we wanted to keep that going, let's say, I didn't pick any of those. Maybe I picked the very first note, but everything after, none of that was picked. Okay, and I'm not doing any hammer-ons or pull-offs to pluck the string. I'm just putting action on the string to keep the dynamic level up, so that the notes don't die, as I did earlier when I did this. So every time you slide over a fret to do a slide, the string is being set in motion just slightly. So it's the real dynamic range looks like this with slides. Okay, let's compare. You play a note, okay, and you don't do any slides, and you just hold the note out. The volume, the dynamic level just goes down. It decays until it's eventually gone, right? When you slide, it's kind of more like a staircase down. So every time you go over a fret, it just slightly puts the string back in motion a little bit. It's still declining on its own, but it kind of does this. This represents dynamics, not the notes or the pitches, okay? But we can take this out so that we can do this as we change notes. Okay, so every time you do a slide, if you do the slide motion quickly, you can create this so that it never dies. You could play for hours and never do a hammer-on or a pull-off or tapping or pick any notes, and you can keep that up. Okay, now when I say do a slide fast, I don't mean this. I don't mean that. I mean, so those notes were pretty slow, right? They're just like quarter notes. Well, once I decide to move my hand, that motion was pretty quick. And the fact that the motion is quick, the string slides over those frets and it gets rearticulated a little bit. Okay, and that keeps it going a bit. Okay. Where I was going to go with this originally was, we talked about earlier about doing slides up or slides down. When you go in one direction, the purpose of the slide really is to transition or to travel from one place to another. Okay. But there are other ways to use slides that are not, it's not about traveling. It's not about getting from point A to point B through a slide. And that is using slides as an ornament to a note. So for example, if I do this, I used the slide to get from point A to point B and then back to point A. So I'm just using it as a way to get around. But if I do this, there I did two slides. That's two slides together. That's called a backslide. You're bending away from the note and coming right back to it. It's called a backslide. Slide away and come back. It's called a backslide. But we don't really hear it as 2 notes. It's really this. Just like if I bend it, that's just an ornament. I'm really playing 1 note, not 2. It's 1 note being ornamented. Same thing here. That's 1 note, not 2 notes. So when you do these backslides, it's really just a single note being ornamented. And backslides sound pretty cool, all the time. And you can use little backslides. They're like little jerky movements. You're just sliding up and you're coming right back to where you were. That's all it is. Okay. But it's pretty quick. And you can use backslides as a substitute for vibrato. So I love vibrato. I play vibrato all the time on notes. It's just something I like to do. But I recognize that if you put vibrato on every note all the time, it gets a little bit old, right? It gets a little bit stale. So we might do. So now I can substitute out the vibrato for a backslide. It's a different feel. It's a different ornament. And it saves the vibrato for maybe another note somewhere else. This is a really cool way to use slides besides just a way to get from point A to point B.
Yep. And I love how the whole thing is very personalized because you develop all these slides and backslide to fit your own style. Other people use the same elements, but you develop it to fit your own style. And I think that's one thing that it's important to remember is that when you explore those techniques, you need to have a critical eye on what you like, what you don't like, what are the possibilities. You try all the possibilities, but then you eventually have to combine the one together that you like the best. Okay? So you don't have to sound like a mess. You can, but you don't have to. Okay. You can start thinking about what do you like about slides? Okay. What makes the sound of slides work for you? For instance, one thing I do that the mess can do, but doesn't, okay, is that I like double slides, meaning 2 notes at the same time. When you have this kind of thing, so you have, I take an interval or something, and I slide. And one thing I learned to do is to make the 2 slides go on different lengths. So I can start with this, only 1 fret of distance, and end with these 2 frets of distance. So I can get between, in this case, it's between a major and a minor 6th. Okay.
Now that's pretty challenging, actually, when you do it for the first 2 times. That's pretty tough at the beginning.
It's not easy, but it's doable. And the thing is, I really wanted the sound of a slide in this specific passage. That's an arrangement of a song, but I really want that specific sound on the specific passage, and so it's like I need to suck it up and learn it. Okay, that's so you learn to do those things. Okay, that's an arrangement of the song "Memory" from the musical Cats. You know the song, no? I mean. You know the song. Anyway, at the end, there are those lights here. So I like to have these lights, and then it becomes the final chord. Okay. So you adapt the technique to what you want to play, to your style, to the kind of musical vision you have. Why am I saying all this? Because I don't want people to come here and thinking, oh, okay, those are nice and interesting things, but I can apply them only if I play neoclassical metal. Okay. You can apply this in any style, but you need to think about how, and you need to see what works in your style. And you cannot just take the surface of this. You have to go and see, okay, This is what Thomas is showing me. This is what Tommaso is showing me. This is what those guys are showing me. But how they were thinking about that, how they got to that. Okay. And one of the keys, for instance, here was the error recovery. Okay. Lots of the techniques that came here became also because we were thinking about error recovery. Or some of the techniques came here because we were like, okay, I have this sound in mind. How do I do this sound on the guitar? It happened to be a slide, okay? Or it happened to be something else. It's just, again, think like a musician, not just a guitar player. Think with more than just your hands. Don't just think, okay, my hands can do this, so I'm doing this sound. Think, what is the emotional effect I want? Okay, and then try to find a way to get a sound that has that specific emotional effect. Okay, it's kind of turning everything on its head, and it's important. It's important to keep this thing in mind.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, these techniques that I'm showing, I didn't invent this stuff. I didn't create it. I heard and saw other people doing it, and some of those people play in styles that are not the styles that I play in. So I take something over here and I think, well, maybe I can use that with what I want to do. Take something from over there. Oh, maybe I can use that if I just do this to it or do that to it or use it as it is. Maybe I can use it in the style that I would like to play. So if I had to rely only on listening to players who sound similar to the way I sound, it'd be really limited in where I could learn things from. It would just be tunnel vision, and not that there isn't a lot of great players doing great things already, but if you can learn some things from outside and figure out how to use them, that's the best. So yeah, you got to look more than just what's on the surface level. If you hear a blues guy do something and you think, well, I don't really play blues and don't want to, so I'm going to disregard that. That would be a big mistake. Same thing if you hear a jazz guy do something and you think, well, that jazz, that's not for me, and that's not my thing. Again, you're closing a lot of doors that have a lot of really good things inside that you could use. So go ahead. You want to say
But that goes beyond just guitar players.
Of course.
I mean, yeah.
Singers, for example.
Sorry, say it again.
Singers.
But other instruments, string instruments, wind instruments. Okay, you can learn a lot from what other instruments can do. But yeah, singers is a big one. Because, but the voice is really, really flexible on those phrasing elements. So
yeah, a lot of my vibrato style, not all of it, but some of the ways that I use vibrato come directly from listening to singers, and of course other really good players, guitar players, but singers in particular, big influence on my phrasing and vibrato in particular. But moving back to we were talking about backslide. So if you do a backslide quickly, it sounds almost like vibrato, but it's different. So that technique is pretty easy to do if two things are in place. You got to have pretty hard calluses on your fingertips. If you don't, you'll start feeling the heat, literally heat. It'll be like rubbing two sticks together. Okay, the friction gets pretty high, and your finger will get hot. Okay, even if the callus is hard, it starts warming up. But if the callus isn't really hard, okay, then it's going to feel hot and you'll probably want to stop. It may hurt, so be careful. I'm going to build the callus up, and that's a great way to build up the callus. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is you got to keep your eye fixed on one point. So in this case, I'm watching this fret, okay, the B note. There's no way I can watch this. I'm not watching both of those frets. My eye's just looking here. Just staring there. So eyes fixed on one position, and then calluses are going to be important. Otherwise, you get tired. It'll get hot. It'll hurt. Rip up your fingertips. A little practice that a few minutes a day, and your fingertips will get hard as a rock. And then it'll be easy to bend strings and do all this kind of stuff. So that's one thing. Another thing, which is really cool, and it can sound pretty aggressive if you want it to, is if you take a melody, let's say we just take this. Those notes, I'm playing basically a B minor scale starting from G. Now, if I play that by itself, it doesn't sound all that interesting. In fact, it's kind of boring to my ear. But you can do things where you can do what are called ghost slides. Now, in my opinion, that sounds better. You may have a different opinion, and that's okay. But all I'm doing is the target note is G, right? So my finger is just starting anywhere. I don't know what fret I'm starting on. It's different every time. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is my eye is staring at the 12th fret. So it sounds a lot more aggressive. There's more feeling to it than this. So you can take something that is pretty ordinary and maybe boring. There you go. So that's something you can do that's kind of cool if you like that sound. If you don't like it, throw it away.
And that's another general principle, if you want, is that it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be a simple thing with the right ornament on top, and it's good. We guitar players seems to have this thing that if it's not hard, we are not happy. Have you noticed that? I mean, other musicians don't seem to have the same. I mean, it's a piano player is perfectly happy to play a few chords and calling it a day. We guitar players are like, no, if it's just this, that's not good. We can do something different. Sometimes that's what you need. I mean, it's sometimes not, but.
Yeah, exactly. Just to take this chance, just answer that top question there. What gauge strings do I use? These are these are GHS 9s, boomers. They're 9 to 42, just standard strings. For many, many years, I used 10s, 10 to 46. And I switched about 4 or 5 years ago. Played 9s when I started playing guitar, went to a guitar teacher, said, no, you got to play with 10s. I played 10s for 30-something years. And then I played someone else's guitar. I was like, oh, man, this is so much easier. So I switched back. What I did was I made a test to see if there was going to be a difference in tone. The reason why I played with 10s is I was told, and I took it for granted, that the tonal difference between 9s and 10s is significantly different, and that 10s would have a thicker tone. Well, I found that not really to be all that true, and that 99% of the tone is really just phrasing, how you play, not the string gauge. So other people may disagree. They may say, yes, there is a difference in tone. Whatever. Buy whatever strings you want. Doesn't matter to me. These are 9s.
Okay, so here's a funny thing, Thomas, is that I switched from 10 to 9 exactly at the same time.
Really?
Yeah. This is not the first time that something like that happened between you and me, right?
It's not the first time. That's why I said really.
So sometimes, this time, either somebody will accuse you of convincing me or accuse me of convincing you.
Well, as far as I know, we never discussed it.
We never.
I don't know what strings you're using until this moment.
Yeah, well, but you use JHS, I use the Dario, so I mean, at least that.
All right.
But I found that there is a difference in tone. The difference in tone is less true on humbuckers. With single coil, it's a bit bigger. But I like the nines better. So I mean, might as well, since they're easy to play. But I know a lot of people will go like other famous YouTuber do the whole test with all the string gauge and the nines sound different and everything else. Yeah, sure, maybe, whatever. I still like the nines better. I mean, when I play them at least, and that's the only thing that counts for me. So,
Right. Yeah, I care more about phrasing than I do about string gauge and amplifiers. And
yeah.
guitar's got to play well, stay in tune, and sound decent. That's what I need from a guitar.
Yeah, you see that's another thing. Yeah, we guitar players are really fanatic about tones, and up to a point that's good. But I remember talking with a few cello players and asking them what they like on the instrument. And what they tell you is that they want an instrument that sounds warm, etc., etc. But when you listen to them and you compare them playing, and they're like, these cellos sound good, these cellos sound bad. At the end, what they like is that they want a responsive instrument. Maybe the cello is super screechy to my ears, but if they respond well to their technique, they like it. So I think with the guitar is the same. The tone, if it's a bit sharper, warmer, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But if it responds to your technique, that's the important thing, so that all the nuances in your playing come through. I mean, you could have a guitar with a perfect tone, but if it doesn't respond well to your technique, you're not really playing it. I mean, in any meaningful sense of the word.
Yeah. There's a good comment here on the top. It says, I think 10s are good for down tuning. I agree. If I play standard tuning, I don't tune down. If I did tune down, bending strings and vibrato would be way easier. And in fact, it would be probably too easy. So then I would go up probably to 10s, or depending on how far you're going, might use a thicker string, because the string at that point is just flopping around. You lose a sense of control, I think, if the string is too loose. So yeah, I would go to a thicker string if I was down, let's say, a whole step. Yeah, I'd put 10s on, maybe 11s, but 10s for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, Thomas, you have something for us. So let me pick it up. Oh wait, they moved. Okay, there we are. So you have this thing for us.
Yes, this is called Guitar Mastery Decoded. Okay, and this is totally free. You can download it right now. Okay, and this will go through the 4 pillars. I think I hold up 3 fingers. 4 pillars of guitar mastery that let almost anyone play guitar as well as they want. Okay, so this is a lot about technique here that help make learning and mastering the techniques that a lot of people struggle with a lot easier to play. So I've had a lot of great feedback from students and non-students who have checked this out and used it, and it's helped them a lot. So you can download it for free, costs nothing. You got nothing to lose. Just go get it.
And you're going to find the link in the description of the video too. So you don't have to copy the whole thing. You can just go there and click on it. And I have something for you too, guys. No, not this one, sorry, the other one. Okay, so if you like the hearing about slides and seeing how you can apply them, I have this ebook here called 18 Tips to Make Your Pentatonic Solo Sound Professional. Those are the tricks of the trade of the famous masters, Clapton, Santana, Jeff Beck, all the guys, okay, Jimmy Page, etc. Those are not just licks. Because, I mean, if you want the licks, to just go and study one of their solos, honestly, okay? Those are the principles behind licks. How they build those licks, how they are thinking about the pentatonic, how you can build your own licks, okay? And several of those do use slides. They have a very specific function in the grand scheme of things on how to move from specific points to other points of the scale, and ways that sound good. There are, strangely enough, I mean, you think music is subjective, but there are ways to make things sound good and make things that don't make the music sound as good. Okay, so you're gonna find it here. Sorry, yeah, there we are. Okay, again, completely free. Link in the description. Go and get it. It's a no-brainer, honestly. And it's an ebook, but you're also gonna see me playing all those, so you can see and hear how they sound, and you can replicate them easily. Okay. There we go. Okay.
Everybody wants to know if they download your free ebook, will it help them grow their beard longer? People have been asking me about that, Tommaso. Will it help them grow their beard longer?
I will have to publish another ebook. How to take care of your beard. Well, yours is longer than mine.
All you got to do, well, just stop touching it. Just stop touching it. It'll grow like a weed. Just stop touching it. Stop cutting
not happening. And this conversation is evolving in a direction that is definitely not comfortable for this YouTube channel. Very good. Okay, Tom Hess, thank you for coming and for showing us
Thank you.
your secret tricks here and your signature licks. Those were nice to see, and I think the guys at home will have a fun replicating all those.
Thank you very much.
And so we had an edition on vibrato. We had this thing about the slides. In future, we can do bend and we can do hammer-ons and pull off. Like I think because we can
do whatever you want.
Yeah, we can go on and
I
on.
can talk. You can talk. We'll be good.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody at home. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you soon. Another time for another live theory talks. And until next time, enjoy.